So without further ado, I'm going to present Beth Blake to us all. She is co-hosting, and she is going to be talking about nutrition and dietetics technician. So I'm going to let her take over.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, good. I am at home, as most of you are, and I do want to warn you, I have a dog and a husband and a child. So if you hear things in the background, it's probably one of those three things. We'll try to keep disruptions to a minimum. And as Andrea mentioned, my name is Beth Blake. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm the program director for the Nutrition and Dietetics program here at Orange Coast College. And thanks for joining today. I'm especially happy to see the people who share their video screens. I like to see your faces. I'm an extrovert, and so I feed off of all of you and your faces, and I appreciate you sharing that today. And I think, Andrea, how do we handle questions? Can people chat or?
So at the very end, people are going to chat you questions, and if you just want to read out loud the question, and some of them are going to be repeat. So if it repeats, skip over that question if you've already answered it, but you'll see it at the chat. And I told everyone to wait until the end to ask questions.
Okay. So I will try to keep my portion fairly brief because I know it gets a little boring to listen to one person for too long, and I'll certainly leave lots of time open for questions at the end. Let me share my screen with you, and I've got it here. Can you all see the slideshow now? Yes, okay, good. I usually start this presentation when we're in person by asking all of you a few questions about nutrition. So we'll just try this remotely, alone together, as we've been saying. And I just want you to reflect for a couple minutes about how nutrition impacts everybody's life. So number one, we all have to eat to stay alive. That's pretty obvious. So food is part of our everyday lives. And the career in nutrition and dietetics takes this one step further. How can we use nutrition as part of therapies for treating people who have health conditions or preventing those health conditions from happening in the first place, or for promoting optimal health using nutrition? So we can treat disease, we can prevent disease, we can promote optimal health. Think about the people that you know in your lives, your family members, your friends. Do you know anyone who has diabetes? So a lot of you probably are shaking your heads or thinking yes. Diabetes is very prevalent in our society, and one of the cornerstones of treatment involves nutrition. Do any of you know someone who has high blood pressure, hypertension, cancer, heart disease? These are all conditions where we are using nutrition as part of a person's therapy. There's other conditions where nutrition's pretty much the only or the main part of therapy. That would be things like food allergies or celiac disease. Celiac disease, the main therapy is a gluten-free diet. And so there's lots of conditions where we're going to use nutrition as the first line therapy. And even making it relevant for today and what's happening with our pandemic right now, we've been hearing a lot about patients who are on ventilators. Well, how are people on ventilators getting their nutrition? If you're on a ventilator for a week or 2 weeks, does that mean you just don't get any nutrition for those 2 weeks? Hopefully not. Hopefully we're feeding our patients, but we have to do it different ways. So we're going to feed them directly into the gut, or we're going to feed them through their veins. So all of this is part of a career in nutrition and dietetics. So this picture I like to show you just to give a little bit of origins and background on the profession itself. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics celebrated their 100-year anniversary in 2017. So this picture was taken in 1917. Dietetics really started around the time of World War I, and that was because the government was finding that there were many soldiers coming in with malnutrition. They were malnourished. And so thankfully our interns do not have to wear these outfits when they go to their internship these days, but it is a profession that has been around for more than 100 years. And just back to what I was talking about in terms of what dietetics is, in case you hadn't heard that term before, it's kind of that three-part that we talked about, using nutrition to treat a disease or part of a treatment for a disease, to prevent disease, and to promote optimal health. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see right here this acronym, MNT. So MNT is medical nutrition therapy. And it is one of the things that you would be learning throughout this program. In the United States, there are 2 nationally recognized professions in the field of dietetics and nutrition. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see a registered dietitian or registered dietitian nutritionist, and on the right side of your screen, you see the nutrition and dietetic technician registered, or NDTR. So those letters that you see right here, these are the credentials that somebody would have after their name once they've met all of these requirements. We're going to focus on the technician profession in today's talk, but I did want to let you know about the registered dietitian profession as well, because some people use the technician as a stepping stone to become a registered dietitian. So I'm happy to answer questions really about either of these professions. If you're thinking about becoming a registered dietitian, at this point in time, it does require a Bachelor of Science degree. And then once you finish your bachelor's degree, there is a internship, typically unpaid, and it requires 1,200 hours. After that, there's a national registration exam. But I do want to note that starting January 1st, 2024, so less than 4 years from now, you will be required to have a master's degree prior to becoming a registered dietitian. So anyone who's expressing interest in this discipline right now, we're preparing them to have a master's degree. On the right-hand slide is the technician level that we're going to talk about today. And this is the program that we have here at Orange Coast College. It requires a 2-year Associate of Science degree. There's also an internship or supervised practice component. It's 450 hours. And then once you complete the program, there is a national registration exam. The supervised practice hours are completed within the program. So similar to some of the other programs that you've already heard about, you're taking coursework and completing your internships at the same time. Versus with the dietitian program, you get your degree first and then you do your internship hours. That national registration exam is different. So the questions on the RD exam are different than the questions on the DTR exam. And just one other note at the very bottom here, there is a second pathway for taking the dietetic technician test, and that's having a bachelor's degree. So if somebody completes the bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics, but does not do this 1,200-hour internship, he or she can take that exam as well. But the pathway we have here at OCC is the 2-year AS degree. So what is a nutrition and dietetics technician? When I'm describing it to people, I often talk about other professions. So if you think of nursing as different levels, so somebody can be a nursing assistant, they can be an RN, they can be a BSN. Nutrition and dietetics functions in the same way. So we've got our 2 levels here. We have our technician level that supports a dietitian, and then we have the dietitian level here. So it's an allied health profession that typically works in conjunction with the registered dietitian. There's some business and profession codes that outline that a dietitian must be over supervision of technicians, and some technicians work independently. And then they're part of the healthcare team in both food service, in patient care, and clinical care, as we're going to see in just a couple minutes. And as far as work settings go, the majority of our graduates, I would say probably 90%, are working in some sort of clinical facility, and that's usually a nursing home or a hospital. There are some opportunities within community nutrition, but typically at the technician level, most of the positions that you'll see will be in a clinical setting. So nursing homes are a great place to find jobs, and also hospitals as well. So let's look at the different settings where technicians work and what they're actually doing. So in a clinical setting, if you have direct patient contact, and some technicians do, most do, they're kind of doing a combination of different things. You're going to participate in the medical nutrition therapy that I talked about at the beginning. So assessing a patient's nutritional status, diagnosing their nutrition problems, and intervening with them. So ensuring that patients get the correct therapeutic diet, and also monitoring their progress. Embedded within that is education about their therapeutic diet. So if you're working in a hospital and you have a patient with diabetes who's being discharged, it is common for the technician to come in and provide some education upon discharge. So not only are you providing for their nutrition needs while they're in the hospital or the nursing home, but also helping prepare them for when they go home. Because remember, as I mentioned at the very beginning, people have to eat every day. So helping them to continue their treatment plan once they get home is really important. I always like to include a lot of pictures. So I have some pictures of preceptors and graduates who are working in a clinical setting. And you can see here on the left-hand side, this is a technician who's doing patient charting. A lot of what we have to do is documentation of the work that we're doing. And so we would chart on things like a patient's weight, if they've had any kind of weight loss, what kind of medications they're taking, looking at their lab values, and trying to use all of this information to determine what their nutrition problems are. So as most clinicians will tell you, they spend a lot of time doing documentation. The same is with nutrition and dietetics as well. So we do spend a lot of time sitting at our desks. Most charting these days is electronic. So even within nursing homes and hospitals, of course, your charting is going to be electronic. This middle picture here, this is one of our graduates working at CHOC, Children's Hospital of Orange County. And CHOC has a dedicated nutrition lab that serves their NICU babies and young children. So she here is preparing, if you can see that in her hand right there, she's preparing some infant formula. And this takes place in a sterile environment. So she's got her scrubs on, and she's got her hairnet covering. And you can see in the back here, this is just different supplies that they're using either to make formula or to fortify breast milk for our NICU kids. And then over here on the right is another one of our graduates who's working in a nursing home. And he's in the kitchen setting right now. So remember that one of our tasks as technicians working in the clinical setting is to ensure that our patients are getting appropriate therapeutic diets. And so we do spend quite a bit of time in the production kitchens at our facilities, making sure that our cooks and the people who are working on food prep are providing the correct therapeutic diet for our patients. So just some examples of technicians in clinical settings. Remember, like I said, about 90% of our graduates are working in this type of setting. So not all clinical jobs are the same. Obviously, this nutrition lab here, this is something that is unique for the hospital setting. And these two here were in nursing home settings as well. But let's take a look at a couple of other settings in case you're interested in those. In food service, so this could be a school district. This could be, again, a hospital or a nursing home. We have technicians who are overseeing all of the food production for a particular facility. And in that case, your tasks are going to be a little bit different. You might have some patient care that you're working on, but a lot of it will be around managing your staff. So managing your food service employees, managing your budget, making sure that the food that you serve is safe. So food safety is a big component of this position, developing or approving menus, And a huge thing is preparing for surveyors and inspections. And so when you've been out and about at restaurants, you've probably seen the signs in the window where they have a letter and where the health department has come in and given them a grade. The same types of things happen within our healthcare facilities, where we have not only the health department, but also the California Department of Public Health, and also CMS, which is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that are coming in and making sure that the facilities are serving nutritious food and safe food for our residents. And then finally, in the community setting, there are some opportunities for nutrition and dietetic technicians to work in the community setting. And this picture that I have here on the bottom, this is a group of graduates who are working within a school district. And normally within community settings, it would be organizations like schools, as I had mentioned, but also things like WIC, which is Women, Infants, and Children, Head Start, and Early Head Start, which is a preschool education program. And here we're often not especially treating diseases, but we're trying to promote optimal nutrition within our population. So our population of kids or our population of preschoolers. Often in a community setting, our nutrition professionals are working with an underserved population. So if you're thinking about working in a community setting, having other skill sets like speaking another language, if you speak Spanish or Vietnamese, for example, that would be a good skill set to have in order to make you more marketable in community settings. But again, where you would find jobs here are things like school districts and Head Start and WIC. I will say that a lot of school districts these days are working with students who have special nutritional needs. Food allergies would be the #1 thing. So we've got, a fair amount of kids who have food allergies, and we need to make sure that the meals, the breakfasts and lunches they're being served are safe for them. But we also have kids with celiac disease that need gluten-free diets. In some school districts, they're even feeding special needs kids. So kids who have modified textures, even tube feedings. So even kids who are on tube feedings, our schools are also providing nutrition services for that. Now, some specifics about our program. I do want to mention that our program does have outside accreditation. That's the first bullet point there you see at the top. And our accreditation agency, just so you know, is called ASCEND, the Accreditation Council on Education in Nutrition and Dietetics. What are the requirements to successfully complete the program? The first thing is completing all of the curriculum that is required for the Associate of Science degree. And within this degree, you're required to earn at least a C or better in all of your coursework. So that, depending on the instructor, may change. I know that I have some classes that I teach where my grading requirements are a little bit different than the standard percentages for grades. So I teach several classes where 75% is the cutoff for a C. So instead of kind of the common 70% that people use for a C, you have to get at least 75% in order to pass those classes. So something to be aware of. If you're thinking about using the technician program as a step to become a dietitian, then getting your GPA as high as possible is really important, because when you go to transfer to universities, that's the first thing that they're going to look at is your GPA. In addition to your required coursework, there's also 450 hours of supervised practice that I had mentioned in the previous slide. You also submit a portfolio of accomplishments. So these are projects and assignments that you've worked on throughout the semester. And then finally, we do have a practice exam. So this is designed to mimic the national credentialing exam that I had mentioned before. And you have to be able to complete that with a score of 75% or better. In terms of your curriculum, I just want to be upfront about the types of classes that you'll take. So nutrition and dietetics is a science-based profession. We use evidence-based curriculum. And so I know that you can go out there today and Google anything about nutrition and get an answer, but Most of the information you find on the internet is junk, so please don't do that. And everything that you're going to learn within our program is all evidence-based. So in addition to just kind of basic nutrition knowledge, you'll learn about medical nutrition therapy. And then about 40% of the program is actually food service management classes. And I'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. But there are several classes that you take in our production kitchen and a couple classes on managing personnel, menu writing, menu production. So it's kind of a nice blend between the straight nutrition and medical nutrition therapy and food service management as well. So here's some pictures of our students in the nutrition lab. We do have a nutrition lab that right now is currently located in our journalism building, having nothing to do with food. But we're actually, if you've ever visited Pirates Cove, we're right next to Pirates Cove. When you exit Pirates Cove, the back entrance to our food lab is right there. So you may have walked by and not even noticed it before. The food lab is set up like little mini kitchens, so we have stations in there. And for most of our classes that have labs, you will be making food and then doing evaluation of them. So it might be sensory evaluation, it might be evaluation of the nutrition content. In addition, you're going to learn again about that medical nutrition therapy. So how do we deliver food to someone who has diabetes, to someone who has cardiovascular disease, to someone who has cancer and needs extra calories and protein as well. So we spend a lot of time in the food lab. And just to give you an example right here, so this is a student right here who's preparing a diet with a modified texture. One of the most common types of therapeutic diets that we see, especially in a nursing home setting, is changing the texture of the food. And here's an example of what that might look like. So on the right here, you would see a regular dinner. So it's a nice piece of chicken and some vegetables and potatoes, and you've got your cup of coffee there. Now, what if you have a patient who has dysphagia, which is swallowing difficulties? They can't eat this, but they still need to eat, and we still need to provide them nutrition. So they might be on what we would call a pureed texture. This is the same exact food. It's the same exact food, but the texture has been modified. You'll see the students down here in this bottom picture. They're learning how to make a pureed texture diet so that it's a homogeneous composition, meaning that it protects our patients, that they won't choke, but it also has to provide the nutrition, so the same nutrition that's in this. And hopefully it tastes good, because it really doesn't matter how nutritious your food is. If your residents don't eat it, then they've gotten zero nutrition, right? So it's important that even if someone is on a pureed diet, how can we make it more attractive to them? How can we make it look more appealing to them? And these are some of the types of things that we'll practice in the nutrition lab. And by the way, if everything goes as planned, we will be moving into the brand new student center building for the fall semester. And that means a brand new nutrition lab, which I'm super excited about because our lab right now is pretty 1960s. But we're hoping, crossing our fingers, that we're still going to be moving into that come fall semester. In addition to our nutrition or our food lab, you'll also have some classes in our production kitchen. So the production kitchen is a large scale, like a restaurant style kitchen. So this is the same kitchen that serves our campus food service. So you'll have at least 2 labs within the production kitchen. And the reason behind that is to get you comfortable with quantity food production. If you're working in a nursing home or a hospital or a school for that matter, you're going to be overseeing the production of large volumes of food. So not just what you would make at home for yourself or your family for dinner, but large volumes of food. So we want you to be comfortable with the equipment that you would find in a production kitchen and being comfortable with making large volumes of food. Now, none of you are going to go out and be cooks, but what if your cook calls in sick one day and you have to fill in? Or what if your cook is doing things wrong and you need to correct that? So even though we're not training you to be chefs or cooks, we still want you to be familiar with that large scale production equipment. I think this was one of the catering assignments that they worked on. When you work in the production kitchen, you will have the typical outfit. So you've got the chef's coat, chef's hat, and pants. So that's part of the equipment that you'll purchase in this program, and also your own knife kit. So there's 2 classes that require the purchase of a knife kit as well. So just some extra tools that you'll have. A couple words about your supervised practice rotations. So as I said a couple times already, there's 450 hours of required supervised practice, and we break it out into 3 semesters. Your first semester, the supervised practice will be in a nursing home or a rehab facility. So rehab is not a drug or alcohol rehab facility, but it's when patients maybe have had surgery and they're not ready to go home, but they're ready to be discharged from the hospital. So it's kind of the go-between from a hospital setting and a home setting. I think right now, we are the only program at OCC, and Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're the only program right now that has students in a nursing home setting, which is kind of interesting because with our COVID-19, we know that there's been some hot spots that are at nursing homes. Our graduates are really on the front line right now in working in this setting. So it's both exciting and a little bit scary for them as well. But there's lots of jobs out there, and it's a good place to work. So your first, that's why we make that as your first internship rotation. So nursing homes and rehab facilities. Your second rotation will be in a community nutrition setting. And that would be, as I talked about before, with a school district or a community nutrition program. And then your last semester, we try to put everyone into an acute care facility, so some sort of hospital setting, and also to get you more food service management experience as well. And I think probably your previous speakers and Andrea have talked about the requirements for starting supervised practice. We pretty much follow the same process for all of our allied health programs. Prior to completing your supervised practice, you would have to complete the physical exam, get all of your immunizations if you haven't already, background check, student insurance. And I don't know if Andrea talked about this, but we're using a new system called Compleo, and it's an electronic clinical onboarding system. Andrea, did you talk about that, or no, not yet? Okay. I think our program and EMS were the first 2 programs to use it this semester. So rather than having paper-based clinical onboarding, we're doing it all online, which has been kind of fun and kind of challenging at the same time, but I think we're all going virtual, right? So it's kind of a nice way to ease into that. Just some pictures of internships. I always tell my students, I don't know why you're smiling so much, because the internships are hard, but when I go to take their picture, they all want to smile. And I don't have any pictures of our students interfacing with the residents or the patients, because that would be a HIPAA violation. So all these pictures that you're seeing here are mostly, I'm looking at them, they're mostly in the food service setting. So you can see one student here, he's making some nourishment. She's delivering some snacks, I think. And then these are test trays right here. So this was a student who was testing trays for correct temperature, for correct consistency, for correct texture. But they do interface with patients a lot. Again, I just couldn't take pictures of those because of confidentiality issues. Okay, so I'm going to try to wrap it up in just a couple minutes. So bear with me if I go through these kind of quickly. With our community nutrition internships, which remember is your second rotation, these are a couple interns who are at schools. So this one right here, I think that was a kindergarten class. And they're doing the same thing that we did today. They're doing a thumbs up and a thumbs down. She had fed them, I think it was like snap peas. And then they had to try it and then give a thumbs up or a thumbs down whether they liked the food or not. These are a couple other students who are delivering a lesson on whole grains to an after-school program with the Newport Mesa Unified School District. And then we do usually have one intern who works with our very own Pirates Cove. And it's not, when you intern with Pirates Cove, it's not just working at Pirates Cove, but it's also delivering nutrition education. So this was a student who was delivering a session to Pirates Cove clients and making some meals and having them try things as well. So they are kind of fun, but lots of work as well. I think I talked about this already. And then here's just a few more pictures of our graduates in action. Lastly, about the program, we do have a lot of community partners that we work with. I think it's really important for our students to get out and network with people out in our community, and also to make good connections for when they're looking for jobs. So these two pictures right here, the two at the top, we have a collaboration with Chalk, where we do classes with their metabolic clinic once or twice a year. And these are patients of the clinic that are coming in and learning how to cook based on what their own therapeutic diet is. This was a collaboration that we did with Head Start, where we had their cooks come in and do some practice. Actually, both of these are with Head Start down here. So I try to get you involved as much as possible and encourage you to interface with the community, to participate in extracurricular activities as well. So what are some of the challenges and barriers that our students face? I understand that you're all very busy. You have lives, you have jobs, you have schoolwork. The number one thing that I see students struggling with is their availability to juggle classwork, their actual work, their paid work, and then their internships. We do require that you have at least 2 weekdays available to be at your internship. I don't dictate what days of the week that is, but you need to have at least, 6 hours. So maybe you're going to class in the afternoon or evening, and you can do your internship in the morning hours, but you need to have at least 2 weekdays. Sometimes I have students come to me and they say, oh yeah, I have 2 days available, Saturday and Sunday, but that's not going to work. So our preceptors primarily work Monday through Friday, and they want the students to be there at the same time that they are. So if you are thinking about this program, but you're working full-time or you're working Monday through Friday, now would be the time to start thinking about how you can rearrange your schedule. So two weekdays during regular working hours. Yeah, it also can't be, after 5. So I've also had students who say, well, I'm available every day, but it's after 6 p.m. Well, that's not going to work either. So you really have to have those 2 days available during the week and during regular business hours. Sometimes when students start their internship, they find that they can do hours in the early morning or late evening or even on the weekends, but at the beginning, it's pretty much always going to be during the week. So that's the number one thing. I really want you to seriously consider how you're going to juggle your classwork, which can be time consuming, and your internship, and if you're working a regular job as well. So with all of those things would be like your personal expenses, financial aid, if you're going to tap into that. Transportation to your internships is your responsibility, so we don't provide transportation to the internships. And then again, making sure that you're getting good grades on your classwork. So last couple slides, and then I'll open it up to questions. Salary level. So for our technicians that are working in a clinical setting, they're starting at about $45,000 a year for entry level. If you are working in a setting where you're supervising staff, then they start at in the 50,000s per year, depending on the size of the facility. And then once you move to bigger facilities, your earning potential goes up. So you'll always have a higher earning potential if you're managing staff. Our technicians that work in a clinical setting who are doing patient care functions don't earn as much as the ones that are managing staff. So if you're willing to manage staff, it's a really great way to increase your income. The job outlook in nutrition and dietetics is expected to grow faster than average. Our wait list, we don't run a formal cohort program like I think most of the other programs do. So there is no formal wait list. That means you can start taking classes right away. However, please be aware that you'll be competing with other students for classes. And also make sure, it's really important that you are following the sequence of classes that's listed in the course catalog. So our classes are sequential, which means that they build upon each other. You have to take class A before you can take class B, before you can take class C as well. One other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot, and this is kind of going back to our internships, there is quite a bit of physicality required with these positions. So again, you can see a lot of the students are working in the production kitchen. So you might be required to lift objects that are fairly heavy, being able to move around a facility, so maybe delivering carts, or as you can see the student here who's delivering nourishments to patients. So being able to handle a fair amount of physicality is important as well. Other nutrition programs. So if you're thinking about this program, but you're not exactly sure if you're ready to take the leap yet, we do have other nutrition programs at Orange Coast College. The one at the top here, this is our associate degree for transfer in nutrition and dietetics. If you're interested in becoming a registered dietitian, which is the other profession that I spoke about at the beginning, this is the degree that prepares you to transfer to a Cal State for that particular degree. So this is fairly new. There's actually only a couple nutrition classes within this degree. The rest is your science prerequisites. But this would be the one that you'd want to take if you know you want to directly transfer to a 4-year degree. We also have a 1-year program, which is called a Dietetic Service Supervisor. So this is a program that is approved by the state of California, California Department of Public Health. It's essentially the first year of curriculum for our dietetic technician program. Students who complete this program are prepared and able to work in food service settings within healthcare facilities. So when I talked about the different settings in which technicians can work, it would be that food service one that I was talking about. And then if you don't necessarily want to do clinical nutrition, we have a nutrition education certificate and also nutrition and fitness education for those of you who might be interested in marrying your interest in physical activity and nutrition as well. So some options here if you're not exactly sure where you want to go. So if you're ready to get started, and maybe you're still thinking about these different pathways, these are some classes that I would suggest that you take. If you've never taken nutrition before, this FN 170 class, General Nutrition, it's required for most of our programs and certificates. It's also a general education class. If you end up becoming an early childhood education major or a business major, it's still something that you can count towards your general education. So that's a really good one to take if you're just curious as to what exactly is nutrition all about. Also, sanitation and safety and quantity food prep, those are good classes to take. Here's your 3 prerequisites. You're all enrolled in the first one right now, which is great. We also have a 1-unit careers in dietetics class, which is offered every semester, and then medical terminology as well. So your prerequisite classes and then other classes that I would suggest taking so you can get a sense of what the program is about. Our professional organization, if you forget what I talked about today and you want more information, eatrightpro.org is our Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You can take note of that website, and if you want more information, go out and get that as well. And then lastly, here's my contact information. So you're welcome to reach out to me via email. Andrea knows how to get a hold of me as well. So if you wake up tomorrow and you have a question, oh, I wish I'd asked her that, you're welcome to email me at any time. Once we get back on campus, you're more than welcome to stop by my office. My office is right next to the food lab, so I'm also located in the journalism building. And whenever you see me in there, you're welcome to stop by and ask me questions. So I think, Andrea, I'm going to stop there. And should we open up for questions, or do you want me to monitor the chat?
I think we can open it up for questions, and then you can read the chat boxes to see the questions there.
Okay, let me see. So this was people getting logged in. Hold on just a second. How much is the program? Okay. I think that's where the first question is, but if I'm missing, are you looking at it too, Andrea, and you can see if I missed any of
already
them?
answered that one.
You already answered it? Okay.
So
Okay.
the one you said that the rehabilitation facility, that question.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at the how much is the program. I just want to make sure this is right. So cost of all program. Yeah, it's about $5,000. So that would include your tuition. It also includes, remember those other things that I talked about, like the knife kit and the clothes that you'll wear in the production kitchen. It includes that, your textbooks. Probably the difference between different programs is where your internships are located. So most of our internships, we try to keep them within Orange County. And that's for two reasons. One, because a lot of our students live in Orange County, but also there's programs in other areas throughout Southern California. So we try not to step on each other's toes too much. But we do have, you know, internships in South Orange County, North Orange County, more inland Orange County. If you're a student who lives in a different area, we can try getting you an internship in another area as well. So that's going to be a big difference in terms of transportation. So rehab facility, oh yeah. Did you answer that one about the rehab facility, Andrea? No, okay. So the question is, you said that the rehab facility hours are not conducted in a drug rehab facility. Is there a reason for that? And are there possibilities that your program might have the chance of practice with those groups in the future? The reason we don't have internships there is because they don't hire our graduates. We want to put you out in places where you can get a job. And in fact, I don't have official statistics on this, but I would say at least half of our interns, if not more, are offered jobs at the places where they intern. And a lot of them get offered jobs in their first internship. So it's their second semester. This is when you're at a facility, a nursing home or rehab facility, and they get offered a position. So that's really, really common. Like I mentioned, there's lots of jobs in nursing homes. So rehab facilities like drug and alcohol, they just don't hire our graduates. And that's why we don't put students there. Is there a role for nutrition therapy in that setting? Definitely, definitely. But again, we want to place our students in place where they're going to get jobs. So can we go into this program? Oh, okay. This is a great question. So someone had a question about not knowing how to cook. I am not a chef. I will not be a chef. And I often talk about, there's kind of a dirty little secret within dietetics that many people in this profession really don't like to cook at all. There's a lot of dietitians that are like that. I don't encourage people who don't like food to get into this profession. And I think the more you appreciate food and are interested in it, you'll just have a more fulfilling career within the field of nutrition and dietetics. So, you know, you don't have to have a perfect diet yourself. I certainly don't, but you should have an interest in food, in healthy food, right? Not like Orange County Fair food, but healthy food. But knowing how to cook, no. The classes that I talked about in the production kitchen, the instructor for that class knows that there's nutrition and dietetics majors in there, and she'll teach you how to do things, but you don't have to be a cook going into that. That's a good question. Okay, we had a question about, can we learn more about becoming a stomach doctor through this program? I think maybe that's mentioning a gastroenterologist. No. You will learn about conditions of the gastrointestinal tract that require nutrition therapy, but not about becoming a gastroenterologist. What made me choose this career class? Oh, thank you. That's a good question. I went to college as an undeclared major. I don't know if you're all like that. Some of you may know what you want to do, some may not. I went into college not knowing what I wanted to do. And I took a general nutrition class. It's that same FN 170 class that I encouraged all of you to take. And I loved it. So I went and I talked to the professor and I said, I'm kind of interested in this nutrition thing. And he looked up my grade and he said, oh, you're getting an A. Okay, you can be a nutrition major. And it was kind of just as easy as that. But reflecting on my upbringing, I grew up in a household where we did eat healthy. I was in school at a time when like everybody came to school with their Wonder Bread and their cookies and ding dongs, and I didn't have that. I was like the one kid who had whole wheat bread and fruit in my lunch, right? So I think I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household that recognized that good nutrition was important. I think it's kind of both of those things. Thank you for asking that question. I'm going to keep scrolling. I saw a slide about work environments, but it got skipped. Okay, I skipped it just because I felt like I was talking too much, but let me go back to that one. So here's work environments. This was just talking about the different settings in which you might work, and they're really aligned with where you would be placed in internships. Nursing homes and the rehab facilities. Assisted living, so that's kind of another big area that's up and coming. This is for seniors where they don't need skilled nursing, but they aren't living at home anymore. Hospitals, school districts, senior centers. So we do have some graduates who are working in Meals on Wheels programs, and then our community nutrition programs like WIC. So again, most of these will involve some sort of component in food production, so in the kitchen, and you won't be physically making the food, but you might be involved in that. So there is some, it's not a desk job, right? So you'll be walking around talking with patients or residents, perhaps in the kitchen as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Does the program teach about different diets, vegetarian, veganism? Hold on. There was something that was covering it. Okay, so the question is, does the program teach about different diets and have special job positions for managing those who have diets? I'm not sure I understand the second part of that question, but we do talk about vegan diets and vegetarian diets. There's a huge push even from our professional organization for plant-based diets and to promote plant-based diets, especially for prevention of chronic diseases. You don't have to be a vegetarian or a vegan to be in this program. I'm not. And there are going to be some labs where we're going to ask you to taste certain types of foods. So if you have aversion to foods or you won't eat specific kinds of foods, it's really going to be a difficult program to be successful in, because at some point within the nutrition lab and the food production lab, you will have to do some sensory evaluation. But we do definitely talk about and promote plant-based diets. And the next question is, can you take online classes to receive an NDTR, RDN, RD? As far as I know, there aren't any completely online programs like we offer here at OCC, so no online programs. There are some online bachelor's degree programs and master's degree programs in nutrition and dietetics. But the internship part that I talked about, it's either 450 hours or 1,200 hours, depending on which level. Those aren't online. So you would have to, physically get out there and do the hours. But actually we have some graduates who completed the program here who are working full-time, and they're doing online bachelor's and master's degree programs, and then they're going to apply for internships. So that seems to be a pathway that a lot of people have been taking. Good question. How are we doing on time, Andrea? Do we have 5 minutes? Okay. My chat thing is moving too much. Hold on. Okay, can you go further in? Could you go further in the clinical setting, day-to-day work? Are there specific sectors of a hospital you would work within, like you mentioned at CHOC? So CHOC is very specific, and many hospitals, in fact, Hoag was planning on opening their nutrition lab this spring. I don't know with COVID-19 if they ended up doing it. I kind of suspect it got put on hold. But many hospitals in the area and really throughout the country are starting to open up nutrition labs. And that is usually designed to support the NICU babies or infants that are coming in. So that's a really specific job where it's more like a lab setting. So you saw the picture of our graduate, she's had scrubs on and she had the hairnet on. Not as much patient interaction. The more typical job would be kind of a combination of food service and patient interaction. So for example, if you worked in a nursing home setting, you might spend half of your time going to the different resident rooms and talking to them about, you know, how has your appetite been lately? What kinds of foods do you like? What kind of foods do you not like? So talking about food preferences. You're going to sit in on care plan meetings. So meeting with the family, the patient's nurse, the patient's physicians, and talking about their food intake. And then you're probably going to spend some time overseeing meals. So you might check food trays at lunch or dinner, right, to make sure that patients are getting the correct therapeutic diet. So most of our graduates in a clinical setting are doing some sort of combination of patient interaction, patient care, and food service as well. What if we have our own knife kits, or if we have certifications in ServSafe or culinary certification from a previous credential, would you have waivers for these classes? If you have your own knife kits, I don't teach that class, so I'm not sure, but I think if you have your own, you'd be fine. So there isn't a specific one from OCC that you have to purchase. You could use your own. And yes, we have had several culinary students go through this program. They tend to get a good chunk of the food service management classes waived. So definitely talk to your counselor, and they can put in academic petitions for you to see if you can get those classes waived. And here's someone who has a bachelor's in kinesiology and took a nutrition class like I did and really enjoyed it. I'm curious about how much movement you have as a DTR. For example, if I start out in clinical after this program, can I switch attention to an athlete's diet if I want to switch? I would say, in my experience, there are a lot of graduates who want to work with athletes, but typically if you're looking at athletic teams that hire nutrition professionals, they almost always have they're usually a registered dietitian, or nothing really. You know, they hire someone who's like a so-called nutrition expert, but usually a registered dietitian. So we have dietitians working with Olympic athletes and collegiate athletes and professional teams. So if you have a BS in kinesiology, I might encourage you to start exploring getting a master's degree in nutrition and then doing an internship to get your RD. I think that would be your best path to working with athletes. What's your favorite work environment, and which environment do most students like? That's a really good question. There's a lot of students who are really scared about going into a clinical setting, especially nursing homes. For some reason, they have a very bad perception of them. And you would be surprised. There's many, many students who go in and say, I never thought I would work with old people, right? They call them old people, or seniors. And then they love it. So I would say it's kind of a mix. I think students tend to like the nursing home setting, or some like the community nutrition. So we have a lot of students who want to work with kids and they really like the school district setting. There's not as many jobs there though. So I want to caution you about that. Remember, most of our graduates are working in a clinical setting, but they're often surprised at how much they like working in that nursing home setting. What's my favorite? Education, of course, that's why I'm here, right? I was in the clinical setting for about 15 years. So I worked in a hospital, and I worked for health insurance plans and private companies. So I was a dietitian in practice for about 15 years before I came to OCC. And now I'm full-time instructor. I really like that too. The transfer program is for 4 years university. Does it have to be Cal State, or can it be taken to another state school? And Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, but our associate degree for transfer, I believe, is just a collaboration with the Cal States. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the Cal States. Thankfully, Cal State Long Beach, which is our closest partner geographically, has a great dietetics program, and they do take our associate's degree for transfer. I want to caution you, though, again, make sure you have a good GPA, because that's the first thing that they're going to look at is your GPA. Am I out of time? I'm out of questions. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time. That was a lot of fun. I hope to see you again. Contact me, come see me on campus when I'm there. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all your questions, everyone. If you can hang tight a bit longer, we're going to go on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Daniel Lane.